We're here live in Austin, Texas at the Gridex Media Room with Ali and Nico from the Gridex team. Now, can you guys quickly explain for our audience who isn't familiar with Gridex what it is and how it works?
Yeah, so Gridex is the first scalable, fully on-chain order book for the EVM ecosystem. So what we've done is that we've completely done away with traditional central limit order books. We've come up with our own new Gmob model, and essentially what that does is that it makes sure that the gas fee is constant regardless of whether there's one order in the order book or 10 million. The gas fee is the same, and the gas is as low, if not lower, than Uniswap v3.
Okay, so Uniswap v3, there's a lot that was just said there. No, that makes sense. So if we're looking at, you said zero gas fees.
No, not zero gas fees. The gas fee is constant, regardless of whether there's, because usually in traditional order books, if you try to put them on chain, because they need to match someone doing a swap with an order on the order book. So if the more orders there are on the order book, the more orders it needs to check. So the more computation, the more gas on chain. So usually it would the gas fee would go up linearly with the number of orders, okay, or at best logarithmically. But anyway, that if it goes up, that's a problem. Because if you want a scalable order book, you want it to be able to handle an arbitrary number of orders. So with us, the gas fee is constant with the number of orders. So it'll never change, and that makes it effectively infinitely scalable.
How have you done this when others have, I guess, failed? Because I guess this is something that's been tried to be done before. It's hard to build things on Ethereum that are scalable, just honestly. I mean, I think you're building on Arbitrum. So can you talk a little bit about that decision, I guess, and how you see that fitting into what you guys are doing next?
Yeah, so the problem is not really like a blockchain problem. It's more of a problem with order books. So because of the matching engine that I spoke about that runs on traditional centralized exchanges and even in TradFi, usually they don't care about this computation because they're doing things off chain, and they make a lot of money anyway. So like it's not that big of a deal. But on chain, you need to be extremely stringent with every single action that you do. Like you try to minimize everything that you do on chain because it's expensive. So essentially, what we've done in completely doing away with the central limit order book, what makes the Gmob stand apart is that instead of placing your orders at a given price, you place them within a very narrow range. So say like 0.05% wide. And essentially what that allows us to do is it allows our algorithm, instead of matching orders, to bundle all of the orders within a given range, and the algorithm will see it as only one order. And then instead of like when someone comes in and does a swap, instead of matching that to one specific order, it fills all the orders in that range proportionally. So in that way, there's no matching happening. You're matching one guy doing a swap to what the algorithm sees as one order. So there is no matching, and that while it's quite a simple switch, that does a lot. Like that completely flips everything over on its head. And if you're wondering if it's that simple, why has this not been done before? You need to look at the history of DeFi. So initially, people were like, okay, we want to do trades in a decentralized way, and we want to do it on chain. Okay, so what did they try to do? They tried to make order books. What did order book mean at that time? Order book and central limit order book, same thing, synonymous at that time. Okay, so you had things like Ether Delta come about. And the reason why they try to do order books, because that's what everyone uses, that's what TradFi is used for like 100 years. So they tried to do that, And then eventually it worked initially, but like I said, because the gas fee goes up with the number of orders, eventually when more people started using it, everything just sort of grinded to a halt. So after that, then you had projects like Uniswap come about and say, okay, well, we can't do order books on chain, evidently. So let's come up with this new model, and that model is the AMM. And yeah, that's a a nice like workaround. But the thing is that the AMM is not, it's not a perfect solution by any means. I mean, just think about it. If TradFi saw this thing that is better than order books, they would use it. Like, they want to make money. That's all they care about. But you'll never see a centralized exchange or like TradFi using an AMM, and there's a reason for that. Okay, because why would you take impermanent loss? Why would you take high slippage? Why would you only natively be able to swap and not put in orders? Yes, there are things like Gelato that allow you to sort of place limit orders, but they're not, in essence, they're not actually limit orders because there is no order book. And that's not native to the DEX anyway. That's sort of just like something like tacked on. So then Uniswap V3 came about, and they had concentrated liquidity. And that, in essence, is sort of on the right track because you're concentrating the liquidity, you're sort of bundling it up. But by that point, they were in the box of, we're an AMM. So they couldn't make that leap to, oh, wait, hang on, we can use this to make this like really cool order book model. So while before Ether Delta was in the box of order book equals central limit order book, then Uniswap V3 was in the box of, we're an AMM. So we sort of looked at it from outside of those two boxes. We're like, okay, what if we can marry these two things together and come up with something great?
So that is incredible. It sounds like a huge revolution, and basically what you're saying is that what we need to do, or what has failed, is the things that are successful in traditional finance have not been replicated well in Web3, even though they should be and can even be improved on. Is that?
Yeah, so exactly. So, I mean, order books, like, I would say there's probably one use case for AMMs that will stick around in the long run. I think Curve will be around. Like for stablecoin swapping, you won't have impermanent loss, or at least you shouldn't. Obviously, there are times where it will still happen, as we've seen. But yeah, in times like that, like I still wouldn't say it's not even necessarily clear that in that scenario it's inherently better. It might match order books in that scenario of swapping one stablecoin to another. But I think in every other scenario, the AMM is just an on-chain compromise. And why make a compromise when you don't have to anymore? And in terms of TradFi, so like our order book model, okay, while it was conceived to make it possible to put an order book on chain, it's actually not a compromise at all. So it could work easily just as well as a central limit order book if a centralized exchange wanted to adopt it. And not only that, but there could be some advantages for that. So for example, we have true maker orders. So say you go on Binance, okay, if you try to buy higher than the current price, they wouldn't let you do that. It would just execute a market swap. Instead of being a taker, you would be a maker. And if you try to sell below the current price, if you try to sell below the current price, the same thing would happen again, because they're sort of thinking like, why would anyone want to do that? So we don't impose that artificial restriction. And we've seen like some really interesting behavior like already by users where people are actually doing that, and they've found like strategies to buy high and sell low and be profitable. So I mean, evidently there is some like money, there's some advantage to be had with that. And then another thing would be usually on a centralized exchange that uses a central limit order book. And you'd see this on like, if you go on like a smaller like altcoin, you could see that the price might not appear to be moving, because essentially what it does is it moves from one tick to another. So if the tick size is 1 cent, it sort of appears to just jump from, from 1 cent to 2 cents. And it's not continuous. While with us, whenever a taker comes in and does a swap, that has a proportional impact on the price. If a taker comes in, the price will move continuously. It's not like this discrete jump. And there are a lot of like interesting things to be had with that in terms of like market making. And I mean, essentially that's what you would expect. You'd expect, supply and demand. If someone comes in and buys, the price should move by some amount. If someone comes in and sells, the price should move some amount. It's unnatural for no matter how small a buy to come in, it should still move up even an infinitesimal amount. But with a central limit order book, no, it has to be a buy that's big enough to move the price from one tick to the next.
That's incredibly interesting. I think, like for me, I mean, obviously if you use like a central exchange, I worked for a central exchange for a while, that's just not something that you're really thinking about. But you're right, the price has to be fluctuating way more than what users are actually seeing. How does this work? I mean, I guess if I was to put in an order, like how quickly would it be executed? Is it like more efficient? Is that what helps it? I guess because trying to understand, as a user, what would be the main advantage of this?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So as a user, the main advantages would be if you're on the maker side, and maker can be buy or sell. Okay, so while a taker is in general always sort of getting a worse price, because a taker just comes in and takes, like they're just like just fill me like right now, like they're not that concerned about getting the best price. They just want to have their order filled right now. So on the maker side, however, so we allow you to actually be a maker in DeFi, which right now is you can't really do before Gridex. And not only that, but we have negative maker fees. So these are paid directly by the taker to the maker. We don't take a cut. And the analog of this is sort of like the LP fees in an AMM. Now, obviously, that's a very dubious analog, because that's an AMM. This is an order book. Very, very, very different. But being a maker, especially if you're a market maker, that can be very, very profitable, because usually on a centralized exchange, the taker pays a fee, and the maker pays the fee as well, and all of those fees go to the exchange. But
true. That's why they're so huge. Yeah.
Yeah. But with us, it's this is how it should be, because what is the taker fee? The taker fee is there to basically make up for the maker not being filled instantly, and the maker is essentially the one that's facilitating the trade. So it makes sense that they get the fee, and that's if you're like bartering, back like 1,000 years ago, if you've got the goods, it would make sense that you're like, okay, I've gone through the trouble of putting these things on my camel and bringing them all the way here, etc. So give me a small percentage on top, and that's the way that's always been. But now with centralized entities, it's just like, no, you brought your camel and put all this stuff on it, but you pay a fee as well just for coming here.
Yeah, very gated.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good explanation. And probably a lot of people who are watching that probably did not have that kind of deep understanding that you do. So it's nice that you can break that down. I think for the whole maker taker situation, it sounds like the fees are being returned to the makers. Where does Gridex, I guess, then as a company, you have to also make profits and grow, things like that. How does that fit into it in terms of business side of it?
Yeah. So we, as an exchange, are not for profit, and the actual exchange doesn't take any fees. Now, it would be very, very easy for us to take fees. Like, it would be trivial to take fees. But the reason why we don't is that, okay, let's imagine we take fees. Someone can just, we're fully on chain. Everything's on chain. All the smart contracts are on chain. Someone could just come along, fork the code, make a Gridex copy that doesn't take any fees. Everyone goes over there. So I mean, it's futile to charge a fee anyway. And also, we believe it's just, apart from that, it's just against the ethos of DeFi. DeFi, you know, this is for the first time true peer-to-peer trading with DeFi, because when you're trading on an AMM, you're not trading peer-to-peer. You're trading against the pool. But now this is literally, you know, this is what buying and selling is. Someone has something, you have something else. They want your thing, you want their thing. You just swap. So we believe that this is in the spirit of decentralization. Now, in terms of how do we, you know, fund things, how do we keep on building? So we've had private investors that invested for, I believe the portion of the tokenomics is like 5% for our token GDX. And obviously within that, I mean, most of it is for the community in airdrops and maker rewards, and with the launch of GDX chain in the future for proof of stake rewards. And we have some small allocations for the core team, marketing, development. So yeah, how we're funded is a combination of private investors and also an allocation from the token supply.
That makes sense, and it sounds like that's a very transparent in the fact that basically said that, look, if we were taking fees, that would be bad for us because then someone could copy us and basically have a better product, which means that there can't be a better product, at least you guys think right now, in terms of what you can do. What do you think the future is for development on chain? I know we're here, there's been we were at Paris Blockchain Week, we had some different case studies and people kind of building. What would you say is kind of like, you know, your key focuses in terms of what you'd like to see more for development?
Yeah, so there is a lot in development in terms of development. So you're talking about Paris Blockchain Week. So there we had a hugely successful hackathon. Lots of, you know, I was blown away by the quality of the projects. I've been to many hackathons and I've never seen anything of that caliber being produced. So we're in the process of giving grants to some projects. Some really interesting things being built. Like some examples are like decentralized dollar cost averaging, crowd-funded market making, copy trading, lots of things with account abstraction. So some really, really cool stuff is being built on top of Gridex. And I mean, essentially, like that's how DeFi should be. Like that's the reason why you're fully on chain. The biggest reason is composability, and composability is what makes DeFi DeFi. So just like take for example Uniswap, which is a fully on chain DEX. Uniswap is like a foundational Lego brick. Like I don't know anyone who currently just goes on Uniswap itself and does a swap. Usually you do something on one protocol that then does something on another protocol that does something on another protocol, and at some point a swap on Uniswap will happen in that chain. And that's the beauty of it, that you can build all of these layers of abstraction and, you know, do cool things that the initial project, like, you know, would have never thought of. And you don't need to communicate with the project or anything. You just, you know, find the contract. You can write your own smart contracts that call those smart contracts, and everything just sort of fits together. So with us, you know, the foundation of DeFi is something that allows you to do a swap. So we will be the sort of Uniswap of order books on chain. So lots of things are going to be built on top of Gridex, and Gridex is going to be like this foundational layer. And I would actually love it if in the future no one interacts directly with Gridex, and they just interact with other things that at some point, it trickles down, and then something's done on Gridex, because that's how DeFi should be. And in terms of other developments, we're going to be launching on. So right now we've been live on Arbitrum for like 2 months. We're going to be launching on ETH mainnet, ZK Sync, Optimism, Polygon, Base, and we're looking at other chains in the future where we're very flexible with like any EVM chain. But the biggest development is going to come next year with GDX chain. So we're going to be we're building our own layer 0, and basically this will be Gmob on steroids, because right now we live on any given chain where the user is doing a swap, but with GDX chain it will be a base layer that will support native swapping between any layer 1. So for the first time since Satoshi's white paper, you would be able to swap native Bitcoin in a completely decentralized manner, and that's just one example. It can be you can trade any asset on one chain for any asset on another chain, and all of those transfers essentially will happen on those layer 1s or even layer 2s. And those transactions will all be linked to a given trade on GDX chain, and GDX chain will be what's mediating it. GDX will be the native token of GDX chain, and it'll play a very big role in how GDX chain handles transactions and handles trades. And at that point, the GridMaker order book will sort of be spread across a whole network of nodes, and it'll be like very, very, very prevailing. And you might think like, okay, why hasn't this been done before? The reason being is because you need Gmob to do it. Because with an AMM, if you think about it, all of the liquidity is essentially centralized in a pool. If you've got a network of nodes, how do you pick which node gets the pool on it? Like, it just doesn't work. But with Gmob, you can fragment the liquidity of an order book across all of the nodes, and in that way, it's possible for the first time.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. We'll see you all soon. I just want to let the audience know where to find you guys, best places online, and we'll throw them up. And then we'll continue this conversation as well. I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more from Gridex, and this is honestly just the beginning. But where should people find more information online? So
gdx.org is the first place. You can trade using Gridex on the first aggregator that's aggregating us, which is d5.xyz. You can find us on Twitter, Gridex Protocol. You can find me on Twitter, Ali Does Physics.
You can find me on Twitter, it's Naviga99.
What about TikTok?
Oh, not on TikTok yet.
I'm not on TikTok now.
I'm just kidding.
Is there TikTok for order books?
Why not? All right. Well, thanks so much, and yeah, we'll see you soon.